Hello and welcome to the skating lesson. I'm Dave Lees.
And I'm Jonathan Byer. Hi, Dave. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. S Novym Godom. Yes. Happy New Year. Yes. This is big holiday.
And with a new beautiful sweater.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
It's gorgeous. Just gorgeous. Okay.
This is the skating lesson. We're going to discuss all things that were happening over the last week. So if you're new here, please subscribe below, smash that like button, and ring that bell for notifications. Okay. Yes. We need like a little bell. I saw Patti LaBelle on TV on New Year's.
Did she have backup singers?
She didn't. Her family was with her. And I have to say that Patti, even when she's being lovely in a room, I feel like she is in charge and could maybe cut you. She had a beautiful house in Philadelphia. So she might be near where your family lives there.
Okay, yeah.
Beautiful house. But she's
up on the main line, is she? Okay.
Anderson and Andy. I just felt like she is in charge and she was looking great and
amazing.
Showing off all of her cooking. They really had nothing to talk about on New Year's, so it was very awkward and quite boring. But we were playing Ticket to Ride, which has been like a Christmas to New Year's week obsession. We had the game before, but we've really
did look pretty intense. I feel like gaming at the Lees household would be an intense experience.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Where here, I'm like, we've all got to be having fun.
You're quite intense about Words with Friends, from what I have.
Word games, but I have to say, not intense. I love playing them, could play them all the time. Not necessarily someone that has to win. I don't want to be clobbered, but I don't have to win.
I heard you.
Just like the game.
You take it pretty seriously. Let's not downplay it, okay?
It's for the love of the words. That's why I do it. Bananagrams.
Galina gave me a speech this week. I was on a session that had more people than I believe should have been on per the rules. And I know that someone that watches this channel will yell at me or debate, but like, whatever. But like, maybe I wasn't really supposed to be on that session anyway, because we had signed up for the 1240, but Galina decided that we were doing the 11. So I just like checked in and like acted like I was in the 11 and like, whatever. So it could be my fault too, but whatever. Like, Galina does not understand that like there are two like very controlling women that like work at the front desk and that like she lives in her own world. Like I bought a card for like my lessons with her because like the thing is, it used to be that like when coaches reached like a certain level, they didn't have to like pay commission at certain rinks, but it's like some of how they attract coaches places. But like now with the pandemic, like everyone is paying commission. So like you can buy a card and like pay your coach's commission and the whole deal. At all of Galina, like other people that want to work with Galina, like want to use my card all the time. It's very confusing. I don't know.
Yeah, that's odd.
It's my card for her. But anyway, so the person at the front desk is like, no, that's his card. So
good. Yeah. And I watched her last night because you uploaded onto the channel these great throwback documentaries, the Katarina Witt and the Oksana Bayul. Watched them back to back. They were like 45 minutes each or something like that. And seeing Galina in the Oksana one was really funny after all of your stories.
She looked great. She had a red coat on.
It was beautiful. Yeah.
I think it's the same red coat that she wears in the Johnny clip when he's getting like designing his costume with Stephanie Handler. Like I feel like she keeps her stuff impeccably. She told me that she has a basement. It's very cold, and it's where she keeps like all of her furs and everything. I feel like it's like a museum.
Okay.
We
have
to see like how a diva lives, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, maybe it's like one of those Russian ice bars where you go down there and it's so cold and you put on the fur and then have your drink or something.
Yes, I do. She loves some vodka and some champagne.
Same.
You know, she got the pomegranate juicer, she told me, because Nina loves fresh pomegranate juice and likes to put it into the champagne. And that's what like Nina likes on New Year's.
I put pomegranate seeds in it because then they like bubble up and it's very elegant. But I don't know if I put pomegranate juice in it. Fascinating.
You saying that Nina Petrenko is not elegant? Like,
no, I'm just saying she's giving me something to try now.
Yes, you have to try it. Okay, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say Nina is.
Could you imagine I pull it right out? Yeah.
It's so funny. You know, I'm studying Russian, right? So I'm studying like the translations and I'm like starting to get like why some of the broken English like happens and it's just so funny because Galina was buying caviar for Nina to have for New Year's. You know, it's a very big holiday for Russians. And she was saying, for me, it's not food. Yeah, like you could either say like, I don't eat caviar, or she was saying for her, it's not food.
It is not edible. Yeah.
I just like loved that thing. And also someone needs to explain what honey cake is. I just know that when Galina talks about her honey cake, she, you know, has the best honey cake in New Jersey. Maybe it all
sounds like a euphemism, Dave. I'm not going to lie.
No, there's some sort of like an icing situation. It has to be iced for like at least maybe 24 to 48 hours or some situation.
Who has got the time?
Galina. Okay. Like she,
okay.
She is a planner. She makes very good cakes. She's quite the cook. You know, the Cantu sisters said that when they lived with Galina, she'd be making like fresh gnocchi. Like they wouldn't be eating any of it, but she would be making this for other people in the house, you know.
Yes. Fascinating. Well, I'm curious to get your take then, having seen the Oksana movie. And you know, when these kinds of biopics come out or specials come out, I always roll my eyes because they so glaze over all things skating. Like they just wanted to talk about Katerina being flirtatious. Like we talked more about that than any of her championships. And Oksana also, they just wanted to talk about how she drank instead of her journey skating wise, like what was happening a little more on the ice. But I'm curious to get your take about Galina on that. When they said they felt like there was no parent figure that emerged. And I was like, if Galina wasn't a parent figure, I'm not sure what was.
So I don't know the whole story. I only know like what I've heard and what I can glean. And I feel like each time you watch something, you kind of get it, but it has crossed my mind, you know?
Yeah.
I think there are like 17 factors that happened here that they said Oksana is a very strong personality. She was allegedly, you know, maybe being drunk and opening numbers, you know, on the ice and like not knowing where she was going, you know, that was happening. I think there were injuries that, you know, she was worth a lot of money and agents and networks, and Galina's getting a cut of that. And every, you know, like there are so many like complicated relationships that we now prevent with safe sport. But like in the Galina family, like her daughter married her son, but in the Soviet Union, like that is like a protection for her daughter, because then like you get more if you marry a talented athlete, and then like you're a choreographer with a talented athlete. Like there was a whole like system of like what kind of a car and what kind of an apartment and like things like that. That's like very, like you learn how to work a system. So I think like with Oksana, like she had so much like youth and fame and power and was getting in every club in New York. And, you know, I think Galina's younger daughter is around the same age. And I don't know if she was then being like accompanying, and Galina was like, oh no. And that factor. And I think that, you know, when you don't want to listen to someone anymore and someone is controlling like Galina, that's a recipe for disaster. You know, those are two very strong personalities. And I think at that point in time, Oksana probably wanted a break and was being worked like a prized cow or hand, you know, and probably really needed a mental and emotional break that amongst other issues and not having a mother and, you know, lots of things that, you know, someone that's coaching you isn't ever going to really replace your parent because they're also pushing you. So it's like a different.
What was interesting, especially I watched them back to back because you uploaded them so it just was nice and played the next one for me, because they were then also discussing like Yuta Miller and Katerina Witt sort of developing this sort of maternal relationship that segued into one that was more of a collegial sister relationship. Also fascinating. I mean, it's so confusing, all of this. Like you said, with the sports psychologist, it's like, we're not here to really talk about nerves. We're probably just here to talk about you and your coach and you and your family.
Well, I'm sure that relationship morphs and blends and becomes very different. But you have a situation where then that coach or teacher isn't part of your family. Like, I think that it blurs lines. And when that happens, I'm sure that there are lots of things that can happen. And there were lots of other factors here. I mean, I think to be a skater in the 90s and to be Nancy or Oksana and be paid that much money, and they both seemed burnt out, whereas Christy was more adjusted to fame and the pro-life, and she was the balanced one, and she wound up making a really long career and probably long money, as opposed to short-term money and people who kind of were getting paid things but didn't really want it because they were just burnt out.
Yeah.
Right? Like Nancy escaped by getting married and having a kid and then came back. But I mean,
but reluctantly a little bit. I feel for some of these people that you see all the managers. I mean, obviously Nancy, that was also her husband, but they're just being burnt out. And they even make a mention of it in the Oksana one when it was like, what, too hot for the ice, or is the ice too hot to handle, or whatever?
But if you think about it, that happens in singing too. I mean, how many singers marry their managers? And then I think like this stuff happens. It often happens, unfortunately, with females who will marry like a male manager or someone, and
it keeps them safe in a scary time, like that transition and that whole thing. Yeah.
And there are so many. Dorothy Hamill's marriage, wrote about it in Scott Hamilton's book. So I don't think it's that unique. I think it was like the youth and different things. I mean, Oksana was one of the first DUIs in skating. She's certainly not one of the only ones, but that one became like
so high profile.
And she was so young, and it was so like shocking, and it was so amped up. But
now this manager that kept talking, then the one that was so disappointed in her drunk driving because it looked bad for her publisher,
apparently they had. It sounded like she had endorsement deals that they had lined up that then were canceled. So yeah. I'm sure that does Galina get a cut of that? Who gets a cut, right? Like your publicist gets a cut, maybe your coach. Like, remember, these are all the things we talk about with like Frank and Michelle, and these things get very complicated, especially after someone wins. Always look at Sarah Hughes and Robin Wagner. They had issues, right? This is not just unique to Oksana, but I think that the problem is that there was a narrative that was created and pushed by CBS and by the participants themselves, but they were also selling Oksana and putting a book out and putting a TV movie out and that fluff piece, all the times. And you think about all of these things that they did to like soften the story of the other coming to America and making money. And they Americanized Oksana and like that story and made it a brand and the whole thing. But then you could see how someone at 19 years old with that much money, myself at 19 years old, I don't know that I could have handled that, right?
And you had a complete support system through your own family. Do you know what I mean? Like there's so many factors at play here. And it was interesting in the Katerina one, you had Peggy talking about the image she and Dorothy sort of had in the media and all this sort of stuff. And Katerina kind of switched that up by being a little edgier. But then they ran into problems with Nancy and Oksana because they were pegging them, I think, as these sort of modern day Peggy and Dorothy, only to realize that Nancy's got a mouth on her. She's got a little bit of a tude. Like Oksana's a little out of control and wild socially. You know what I mean? They were so trying to perpetuate this era of like clean cut ice princess. And it sort of backfired in the 90s because they couldn't get one.
I don't know a skater who doesn't have a little bit of an edge to them, especially if they're...
There's a good pun, Dave.
Oh, well.
Yeah, we know a few that have bad edges, but yeah.
Look, the other day, it was interesting. The other day in Hackensack, when I was going to tell you the story, but it was a busy session. And like, the Hackensack skaters are even different than other skaters. They just like, do not move. You just learn to like stake your claim no matter what. Doesn't matter. There's typically like a rank hierarchy on sessions, right? And like, but someone who is doing their program is like always has the right of way. This is the whole like Mariah and Ansu thing. And like,
I was just gonna say, yeah.
Right, but like it looks one way, but like if you're in a rink, like there's a situation here going on. But like also like Mariah Bell was going forwards. But like, anyway, like there's like a thing. So at a certain point, like I'm the adult skater, but I'm also older and bigger. But maybe there are more experienced skaters who sense that, and then they will try to push and make me move out of the way, right? And like kind of like jockeying for position. Anyway, Galina's like, we're gonna go do Lutz. And it was like a busy session. And I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea. And she was like, no, we're doing Lutz and we're doing it. So I go to set it up and there's a girl with a coach And like I look and do my setup and it's clear, and I move back and like a girl starts spinning like behind me to the left. Now my jump goes up and there, and like because we're doing like half lefts, like I land it and then move forward because we're working on the edge. And like I went like into her because I could, by the time I saw that she was spinning, I was already taking off, right? And like she wasn't spinning before I set up the jump. And why is her coach like right there in the let's corner spinning? I felt awful, right? And like I was like so apologetic. And Galina was like, serves her right. She'll learn. And I was like, she was like, if you want something in life, you have to grab it. You want it, you pay for it. You can't pay for it, you steal it.
So generational. It's so generational and cultural, I find. Yeah, like, we're like, oh no, are you okay? I'm so sorry. Like, I'll go over here. You want to go over here? Like,
you know what? I felt really bad. But afterwards, like, funny, hilarious thing is that like, I went to do my lessons and they only moved for like 2 feet. So I would still like see her every time I was like taking off. And like, I still felt like, I'm the type where like, no matter if it's your fault, it's my fault, I still feel bad, right?
Because bad that it happened, yeah.
My mind, like, to tango, like I never want to hurt anyone, like no matter what. And like other people have really strong reviews where they're like, don't feel bad about this at all. And, but I'm just like always, like I look, I learned to skate at like the small rink where like anyone going into anyone was like a huge deal and like, oh my God, and like, I'm so sorry. Like in a bigger crowded sessions, like this happens all the time.
Well, and I'm thinking about this, Dave, because the other day I was getting a little overwhelmed at a grocery store. Like in Manhattan, it seemed like there were too many people in there. Everybody's darting around. You don't know where anybody's going. I was becoming so like elevated from the experience. And I thought of you and Galina, because I was like, this is a nightmare. This is like trying to do a jump on a crowded session and you don't know where to go. You don't know where everybody else is going. You just want everybody to go away so you can do your thing. I think it would be a nightmare for me.
She claims, she made a mimic. She's like, you're doing so much better. You used to see someone 10 meters away and be like, oh, I can't jump. And like, she was so excited that it happened. Like,
okay.
Fortified. She was
like, now you're a real skater on a real session, doing your job no matter what. Yeah, okay.
That girl will move.
Yeah, okay. Who was the team? Did Scott Moyer say that about the French early on?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Hilarious. See, Scott Moyer was just as snarky as Nancy, only she was a female who said it and they didn't check it. But even if I post anything Nancy, people will bring that up, or Disney, like, she has a bad attitude. And I want to be like, you don't even know that.
They're so proud they remember that one article that came out in 1995 or whatever.
Right. But that's okay. That's better than being Katya, and like she can't do anything without, I can't post a link to Katya. She can't without people bringing up her dead husband all the time. They branded that too. They branded that death. So that's kind of her own fault because they did kind of profit off of it. But they didn't know that she was going to make money forever. Anyway, it was a whole part of building a career here. That.
Yeah.
Anyway.
There you go. Speaking of which, I actually watched Drag Race.
Oh, yeah.
And there is this former skater on there.
Sabato.
Yeah, and inevitably, the first back and forth banter was why me, Tanya, Nancy, clubbing. And it's just, I guess I'd like to think that I can be funny when a camera's on, but like, be smarter. Come up with something wittier than another Tanya Nancy joke.
So I didn't watch it yet. I'm going to watch it, but Denali was the one who made that joke, or someone else made the joke?
Well, it was a back and forth between her and that, is it Carson or Kirsten?
Because you know Denali was the one that was on Cirque du Soleil when that whole thing happened.
Oh, the Texas situation?
What?
Wasn't that in Texas?
Yes.
I had no idea that was who that was.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Let's bring that up. That's far more interesting than another Nancy Tanya joke. And then I always think about Christine.
Like that's even news. Like you don't think that there's like a little bit of experimentation or recreational things
stuff happening in that scene. Yeah,
on,
exactly.
Like...
Oh my goodness, crazy. But I always think of Christine Brennan saying,
Christine Brennan would take it very seriously. But oh my God, there are always comments about Christine Brennan when she is in any of these shows, and I watch her and I figured out what it is about Christine that people hate.
What?
Christine is taught to smile when she speaks and she's telling a story. And even if she is saying something really unfortunate, she's smiling as she's talking to the camera. And that there is a thing there when she's like, and Oksana,
it almost looks smug. Yeah.
It looks smug. And she's saying it with a smile too. And look, I don't know if I don't believe she means that in a way, but she like is taught to like recap and say something on camera. And whatever her training is, she says it with a smile, but that makes people really angry towards her when they're a fan.
Interesting.
Go back to what Christine was saying. I was just like watching her and like seeing it because, you know, like when you have a YouTube channel, you get like old comments and people will be like, I hate her.
Right, exactly. Well, and she did have a really, I love that in the Katerina one, she was like, you're missing the point if you think Katerina Witt is just sexy. You're missing the point. Her competitive nature is like unlike anyone in any sport. She stood at the boards when Debbie was skating? You know what I mean? Like all this sort of stuff. And in the same way, when she was like, I don't accept this narrative that no one knew who Oksana Vayu was, and she came out of nowhere, she was the reigning world champion. Like that kind of voice of reason.
Yeah. However, Christine,
I mean, I know where you're going with this too. Yeah.
How many articles about Tanya and Nancy herself that did not?
Of course. Yeah. But it was the idea that then when they said, and then this one girl out of nowhere came in and won. And of course,
I understand you had an editor and this is the 90s and people wanted what they wanted. The 90s were a very different time. Like things were pushed.
But she had a great point when she was talking to you about I, Tanya, when she said, you know, all of this can only be camp and funny because Nancy wasn't heard. And, you know, I did have one of those human moments when there's a drag queen on television holding her knee, faking and screaming, why me? And the whole room is laughing. And I was like, God, maybe that's not funny to her or her son.
How was it on SNL? How did it become a joke? That whole
thing? Why me?
Yes, because over time, I remember my grandpa like imitating it over time, but I think because it was shown on TV.
Over and over. The fact that they had that actual footage, I mean, it is cinematic in a way, and they just used it.
If you remember, in the 90s, when we first started to have cable TV and cable news, yes, there was like politics and Newt Gingrich hated the Clintons, but like it wasn't in the same way. Politics has become theater more and more over the last 2 decades. But it wasn't in the same, the senators weren't celebrities in the way that they become now.
Right.
Someone like an AOC being like a celebrity junior congresswoman is part of like a social media culture that is proliferated. That's different. So anyway, but they used to show that. I knew who Amy Buttafuoco was, the Utah, right? And that whole thing. So I guess maybe because it was shown so many times, and I'm sure it only takes like one sketch comic, and the whole absurdity of,
I think it was relentless, that clip alone. Even when you see like montages of the 90s, that usually makes a clip. Her saying like, why.
I can laugh, but like usually there's always the part of me that was like, she was attacked. I don't know.
She was attacked and screaming. Her Olympics was there. A man just attacked her in a mask. I
never found it that funny. I have to say, like when people, the whole thing. The stuff about Tanya is a little bit, okay, like the element of Tanya, right? Like Tanya Harding is like someone who no matter how much money she was going to get was inherently going to be broke. Not that dissimilar from Oksana, right? You talk about
it didn't matter what the number they were receiving was.
Have you seen
what medals they had? Yeah.
Tanya is now selling off everything, and you think she was just on Works Cooks, which I'm sure she was getting a much better guarantee than
I did. Yeah.
I didn't do the show. Then there was, she was on Dancing with the Stars, making that money. I don't know what the situation is with her and Tanya. I mean, she's not getting paid for speaking gigs in the same way that someone like a Scott Hamilton is, but there are things that have come her way, and you think she's selling off like a truck and her costume, like Christmas cards, and there's all of that stuff that is coming on there. And then that she has on a shirt that says 2020 S my D. And you know, like that's just who Tanya is. Like, there's like a different level of sophistication and humor. But like to me, that's just like bless. Like that's the kind of thing I'm like, do I share it? Don't. There's a large portion of like the audience that would love to see it. Then there are others going to be like, you have kids on Instagram, you can't share this, you know, and you're like, okay,
yeah,
okay, but
it's tricky.
It's who she is. Okay.
Yeah, she's never really denied it. Yeah. Meanwhile, in China, okay.
Oh, it's just a fascinating situation. I did something to, as we, you know, I feel like increasingly, maybe through the SIAs, and like we're incorporating more and more ballet. And you know, I love a Russian crossover story, but I watched White Crow, which is Kolyada's music.
Oh yes, I haven't seen it yet. Okay.
It is very good. Some of the dialogue later on is like, could be better in some parts, but overall it's a very, very good film. I missed Sergei Polunin in it. Like, is Sergei Polunin an actor or a stunt double, or who is he in it? Because Oleg Avenko is the star of the film, who's very good as Nureyev. And by the way, there was like this hot guy when they were in France, and I was like hoping for some sort of a romance that didn't happen. And I was like, who is that guy supposed to be? I'm reading a book about Nureyev now. I feel like I'm going in a Russian immersion, and I'm reading.
Yes.
I know that the book is named after. So when they do something Ulitsa, I'm like, oh, I know that word. That means street, you know? And anyway, it's a good movie, worth watching.
Okay.
Great music.
Okay.
But trying to figure out like the significance of everyone. I don't remember Sergei Polunin, who is Elena Ilyinik's, I don't know if they're engaged yet, but her partner, certainly, baby daddy, I don't know, the father of her child.
Special friend.
I don't know their exact relationship, you know.
Okay.
Her common law husband. I don't know if there was a wedding, we weren't invited, like, I don't know. But
you weren't, I was.
But she is in the Plushenka. So if you've watched White Crow, please like identify who Polunin. I'm gonna rewatch it. It was great.
Okay.
But there's got a lot of things on the list. You know, when TV is like, there's so much to watch these days. I thought there was like a pandemic and we couldn't film things, and yet endless.
I think we get a Mrs. Maisel this month too.
Is it? I thought it was delayed, but do we get Mrs. Maisel? Because
I thought this was the delayed, but I'd have to recheck.
Somehow my mother like doesn't enjoy Mrs. Maisel, and I'm like, why? I think she fell asleep once when I was showing it to her.
It's something that the more you watch it, I find it's also improving with each season. By the time we ended season 3, it was even more phenomenal than it ever started. So,
and I have the new Shonda Rhimes show. And,
oh, that's right.
And then the Russian Anna Karenina, I've heard, is really good. And the actress looks like Evgenia Medvedeva. So like, I just think, yes, I cannot wait to watch. So anyway, but the Plushenka show, that's one like, I want to go and see it and like do a whole TSL episode. I feel like it needs to be in person. There are things about it that look spectacular. There are things about it that look ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta hire us, and we need to like, are we making money off of the Sun? Like, why is the Sun we're getting to the point.
We're getting to the point where I'm wondering why him.
They're better kids.
Yeah.
You know, didn't Novka make a shady reference that like her daughter is actually learning how to skate or something at one point when they asked her why her daughter wasn't in her shows? Sasha Plushenka is not improving.
Yeah, I don't view this young person as like some phenomenal, exciting talent we're watching develop. I just, it seems like a strange, such a huge opportunity to be given to this person. And it just fell a little flat.
I was just showing my nephews Home Alone 2 because they saw Home Alone on Christmas and they loved it. So I was showing Home Alone 2 and I was watching it. And I was like, okay, there are moments here where Macaulay Culkin is still like really cute and really adorable. And then there's times where he's starting to look like a middle schooler and he's like less adorable. And you're like, oh, his like child stardom is like running out as the movie is going on. You're like,
right. Literally, they're like, we've got 1 week left. Go, go, go. Yeah.
and you're going to be like in Getting Even with Dad, and it's going to be a bomb any minute, right? Richie Rich is coming, and that's not so cute anymore.
And that's the end. Yeah.
So I feel, I feel that Sasha Plushenko is like approaching this point in time.
Resting on laurels that, may not even be there anymore.
You know, I think that maybe less traveling, more focusing on the skating, and then we can put him out. But the double jump, some of the easier ones are still looking a little cheated or a little sideways, and I just think he needs to work a little harder.
Or like a lack of knee or presence or desire to do. In one of the clips I was watching, he's standing in front of the woman and she's pointing elegantly, looking to the sides of things, and he's just kind of standing there waiting. You know, it looks like a kid that isn't dying to do this, like so many probably would be. He looks like someone who's been assigned it, you know, and probably has been. And so I think that just reads a little bit, but we're going to talk a little bit about these Russian production values in these shows. Because as I saw it, they had, in this Nutcracker, they had against one...
This is Swan Lake, not the Nutcracker. So I don't know why the hell his son is in there. Like,
why was I thinking I watched something that was Nutcracker? Okay, sorry.
They get Christmassy at the end.
There's a giant Christmas tree in the first clip that I watched, but of course it was Swan Lake. Sorry, but they have the edge of the rink all set up as a stage with actual dancing and dancers. And then did you send me that Zagitova clip?
Yeah.
No. Yes. And now
program from Ice Age,
that Ice Age production value is through the roof. The way they started with the camera on there, the spotlight, the subtle dots around, and then you would like pan out and that whole set of like jagged ice things. Now there's the skating that she was doing, but like the lights and the production value of something like that was sensational. And I was like, if this is what shows look like, I would go see them.
So think about it. Think about how much money and opportunity Evgenia Medvedeva would have had Terry not said no to her being on that show. She would have had those solos.
Right.
It's an Averbukh solo from Zagitova. She is distancing from Danny G.
Yeah.
Happening.
Yeah.
Like how long a Terry gets that 40%, I would love to know, because Zagitova has a boyfriend, allegedly, who's a hockey player, and now she is not using Danny G's choreography for this production, and it was a much better program than the schmaltz he put together, the Esmeralda and the other one that she fell on the jump during the blue dress, whatever that one was. This one was like way more interesting and developed her far more.
Yeah, I saw an individual out there. Cut to then the clip.
And Ari Zakarian have got to put competitions on, because don't you want to watch Zagitova skating like that against Evgenia Medvedeva, maybe Rodionova, Tuktamisheva is about to be retired in a year. Sotnikova, Yulia can go out and spin and maybe do a couple double jumps. Like, think about it. They have
Anna Pogorila would try to come back out. Yes. Yeah, get them all out there. They have a full circuit.
Eleni could skate and just be like this Shailene Bourne and the solo dancing. Like, I
was watching the Oksana movie with Josh, and he turned to me and he's like, what do they mean pro competitions? What do they mean pro circuit? And I was like, oh, right, it doesn't exist anymore. Like, for someone now, they're like, what does that mean? And I was like, yeah, we have nothing to say that it's comparable to now, but there is a chock full of amazing Russian ladies I would absolutely turn into to watch.
And there are Japanese ladies that they can go up against who will come out. So.
Absolutely.
And then they even have like Arena, who could like come out and be the Roz character. I mean, come on, it is so
nice on-pier waist. Yeah.
I'm like, so ready for it. Like, is she gonna do the double axel? Like, I don't know, but like she's gonna do all the acting like Ashley Wagner. Okay, love it. All right.
Yeah, it could definitely be a thing, because it's interesting though, going back, where was that clip from that we were watching Medvedeva do 1,000 sound?
I did a show in Sochi yesterday, an Averbukh show, but literally they have so many stars And it's like what to do. And that's when IMG created the pro competitions, because they had so many star skaters who were
that were relevant, still had all of this public appeal. People still want to see them.
Okay. I debated talking about this or not. Evgenia Medvedeva's performance.
Which, before we get into that, Dave, I'm just going to wrap up the production part of this to say, like, I was then turned and watched those clips where it was like a frantic spotlight chasing after Medvedeva poorly in this like very dimly lit, oddly, you know, spotlighty thing, and it paled in comparison to Ice Age. And I was just like, I'd rather everybody just wait until they can do something as magical as Ice Age. But okay, sorry, now continue.
Well, I think Zagitova is pretty, but I think that Medvedeva is inherently interesting. There's something in, like the Katarina Witt personality, like what we just interviewed Corey Cercelli on See Alive, and he was saying that when Evgenia would do her long program every day, he said she'd be very friendly on the first session, and then before she would do her long on the second session, and he said before that she would put on her skates in a different room, she would talk to no one,
simulate. Yeah.
If anyone tried to like wave to her, she wouldn't even like see them or acknowledge their presence. And he said no matter what, she would like take that session and find a way to get that long program done for like that, and like not talk to anyone until it was over with, you know. And then she
interesting.
But you think about like how they go and compete in Russia and how she is, you know, there's just something like inherently interesting about her. I think that she could be 10 times the star as a pro as Zagitova, because she can speak, she's so emotive, she's a much more effusive, charismatic personality, whereas Zagitova seems more shy. So I would love to see them compete as pros against one another. I don't think that her competing is like the best use of her talents over the next year. And then it's a little sad.
On the amateur scene, you mean? Yeah.
The story goes that Tarasova told her to lose weight to do a Bielman spin, as though that was going to do, but that sounds like something that Tarasova would likely say, right? And you know, she lost a lot of muscle and she's lost her quick twitch currently.
Yeah. And you say quick, like their snap.
Yes, her sapphire rotates so slowly in the air. She's lost muscle and she's had COVID and there are a million problems, but this has been going on, right? She's like, I just think that like happy, healthy like Medvedeva will be giving such better performances, happier, lighter of spirit, you know, like it's just to like watch her and be like, is she gonna land the triple sow? Like, come on. And then she does a giant waltz jump because Axel's not her best jump, but not even a toe. And you're like, okay, that's where a jump would go. And she's doing a back twizzle. You're like, it's hard to watch. It's
a little bit.
I get that like she was just sick and this is the time to make money in Russia with like the Christmas shows, but the whole thing is just troubling and worrying. And I just think that she is such a star and I would like her to do well. And it's just, it feels to me as if you look at it and you think, what could she get back in a year? Let's say it goes great. What do you think she could get back? Like 7.
It would be a struggle to be from whence you came, and she already was going to have to be in a position where she was more than she was.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen at this point to get a quad in a year that's consistent, that can be like competition ready. I don't see it happening unless the Olympics are like postponed a year, but I don't see that happening for her. So I would much rather they put her in a vehicle and watch her against these other stars.
Let her thrive. Yeah, exactly.
I think they'll have to convince her, but I imagine that when you are so scared of it and then you become pro and then you have these new opportunities, then it becomes exciting. And then you realize like a new freedom. So, and a new happiness. So I hope that she just does well. It's just, she was so much slower on the ice, and I get that she's been sick and not training, but she just, it seems like because of
But we also can't pretend that the issues are new as of November.
No.
Yeah.
So it's been on a trajectory for different reasons.
And again, like you're saying, why go out feeling less than when actually you have so much more than so many other people to offer just in a different venue?
Think about how much better if a Terry had taken her back like a month, or if she had gone to a Terry a month earlier, she would have been allowed to do that Ice Age show.
Yeah. With high production value, something cool.
40% of that. And she would have been like, yes, do it.
Yeah.
Or whatever the percentage, right? Like the...
Right.
But
like you're saying, she could spearhead a whole new thing. And when we have talked about like, what is that, we were talking about this with Ari, I think, like, what is the role of a former champion in perpetuating the sport forward in some ways after they retire? Like, if she were to create a pro circuit right now, she could single-handedly bring back a pro competition thing.
Think about how exciting the personalities of Tuktamisheva against Medvedeva in the pro circuit with Zagitova there, that with Rodionova, like they have personality plus for this.
And they'd be doing their show programs, or they'd have such more flexibility in what they could do.
Number with 3 triples and doing like, would they do it out of a 6 in Ice Age? I mean, come on, the whole thing. The ISU is ready for a cut of anything, so they're ready to take it. But they have the right personalities in play. Come on, you could get Mao skating or giving an exhibition, or Yuna.
Pico, yeah. Mm-hmm.
We were talking earlier. Someone did say that. Someone told me that they thought that the saddest moment of Nancy's career was not when she got whacked, or anything that happened, is when she was like an afterthought as a bit extra on the Kardashians, like skating in their backyard as they were celebrating the holidays together. And it was like, oh, Nancy Kerrigan is skating in the back. Oh. And she like twirls on like a tiny little rink. It happened. It happened.
That's cringy. I didn't know that. Oh,
Carrie has made her do awful things over the years, but that might take the cake.
Might be it. Okay. Yeah, not the same demographic, I would think. The people that would be interested in Nancy and the people.
I mean, I'm sure the money was great, but not worth it. Right.
Yeah, exactly. But at what real cost? Yeah.
You can't get that money. I mean, I think they also could have like a pro tour. Like I would want to see these skaters I don't want to see them like, was it Medvedeva who played Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz?
Oh, right.
And something that they slapped together in 3 days. Like I'd like to see them in like a Stars on Ice kind of production, maybe a Russian version, with Averbukh.
Yeah, do the whole shebang.
Something, but something with like where they could have rehearsal time and theatrics and
Well, it's one of those things like when Sandra would talk about the time and effort she would put into like an opening group number for one of those tours. And that we know when we're at nationals, they rehearse for 5 minutes for a group opening number at the exhibitions or something that looks as much. So just don't do it.
Opening number. I don't enjoy a world's closing number.
Please don't.
The worst is when you know someone who is in the opening or closing number, and then you have to watch, and then you have to figure out how to congratulate them because they know that
you watched.
Critically, you watched.
Yeah. Uh-huh. I'm familiar.
And they're skating. Like,
right.
You're skating really well. Not like
that looked fun. Boy, you were there. Yeah. Yeah. What a fun way to get in some exercise. That's cool.
Oh.
Yeah. Stuff.
It is tough, right?
I have to tell you, you sent me one of my favorite clips, which was that news clip. It was an old clip of Kolyada.
That's what he was supposed to do at nationals.
Doing in the practice in the lead up, the most beautiful quad lutz ever, as only he knows how, a gorgeous quad sow. And then to know that those are the ultimate plan to put in addition to the 2 quad toes, I was like, well, hot damn, now we really are talking about a game changer here.
So I think this is good. He's already had COVID.
So we've gotten that out of the way. We think maybe we're done with that for a while.
Like pretty sure,
Or at least a new version of a sinus thing.
So he already had that. I mean, the Russians are single-handedly going to let us know if you can get COVID twice. Like, I believe the Russian figure skating team like will provide like documented evidence for the whole sport, but the whole world really. But I think you know, we're going to see him at the fake Europeans, and if there are Worlds or the Russian version of Worlds, it's time for him to put in these jumps if he is going to be competitive next year.
Yes. Yeah.
And my thing is, if you're not known for being the strongest mentally, can you get it right to be able to do it at the Olympics? Because I think it depends what your issues are, right? Nancy wasn't a good competitor, but some of that was training based. He seems like some of his was training based before where he would like make one mistake and then give up.
Yeah. Well, and be the biggest fish in that pond, because they were sort of an underdog coaching camp and team also. So maybe there's something with his age now and the respect of Amishan that it's created a totally new, different dynamic for him to start again.
Beautiful technique before. Amishan obviously can stabilize things and further solidify and things. But I wonder what kind of training Amishan did. What did he do? He hasn't had that amount of time to get him to be as consistent as he is. I would imagine it has to do something with not quitting your run-throughs. Something along those lines that's not rocket science, but being respected enough and having the right mindset and the right kind of talks with him and the right approach, maybe not putting in all the difficulty at first and like building that up. There's something that he is doing that is kind of allowing that to happen. So I think it's need to see that.
But I mean, I have to say, after our nationals and Japanese nationals discussions, and we're talking about this epically exciting group of 4 top men, Hanyu, Jen, Kolyada, Shoma. I think that Kolyada, if he starts to introduce these things, he's really gonna throw this for a loop.
I think he further complicates things for Nathan Chen, actually.
That's exactly what I think.
They all complicate things for each other. But
and I'm okay with that, if we're being totally honest. I'm okay with this type of artist doing that.
I would like the best to win.
Always.
Usually I like the best of the season, the best overall to win and have their best moment at the Olympics. And yes, I would like to see all of the best do their best at the Olympics and the best person win. So with that being said, how are things going to then be judged? Because Nathan does have gorgeous jumps, but not always the best landings.
And we're going to talk about this because also I watched in Boyang Jin, who was competing in China this week, some of those same sorts of things. It's like you're playing freeze tag. And when Nathan or Boyang Jin here especially were landing the jumps, it's as if someone yelled freeze and they just like stop in like an unusual position with no speed. And it changes, it makes it so different than a Hanyu or a Shoma or a Kolyada.
Nathan's jumps are better than Boyang Jin's.
Oh, of course. But it's that same kind of stiff, stuck, speeded
forward, quad flip, or he can, which has like an unclear edge at times, or he could be like the Sao Cow can sometimes, and sometimes it's the pattern and where Raphael puts it on the ring. So you just kind of wonder, I think it's going to take a clean performance with good execution and good GOE to win the Olympics for all of the men. And I think that's a good thing because that'll challenge them all to deliver better components. And I think what's good is that having these 4 men with depth, plus Boyang Jin as your 5th person who's always in it for like a bronze medal, and he's going to be at home, I think it will push all of them. Plus they have Vincent Zoe and you have, you know, other.
Yeah, you sort of have these top 4 and then that B group that has about 4 guys in it too. Yeah.
I think pushing them, it'll push everyone to get better programs. So
because as Sandra so beautifully stated, she was like, well, the program only matters if anyone skates clean anyway. And this is a group that may.
And I think that Nathan has had programs that have stretched him as a performer, but they've been more fun programs the last 3 years. They haven't been like a serious artistic piece, but they've all developed his character and his showmanship. but maybe not his gravitas and his skating skills, which again is only
it's the that's the perfect word. It's the gravitas that is missing, and someone like Hanyu, Shoma, and Kolyada have it in spades.
You know, when you get someone down to a 9.25 and someone else is getting a 10, and then that, like, those are kinds of things that start to matter. Can a 9.25 become an 8.75? Like, these are all different things that become part of the conversation.
Or even just the 9, and that's all it's going to take to flip it. Yeah.
I think the other big thing is that we've only been primarily dealing with US, Japan politics in the men's event, right? For the last years, right? And
there was a powerhouse waiting to push a man.
You know, the Russians not pushed it. And do you think the Russians are going to attack Hanyu? I don't think so. I don't think he's one that you can attack as easily as, I mean, I don't think they'll go after Hanyu. I think they would go after Nathan easier.
I think so too.
It's like I said, it's like, you don't want, like, when you're attacked from both sides, that becomes a way more competitive argument.
Yeah.
Javi was going for medal. He wasn't going for a gold medal. He was world title.
Both times, I think.
Both times, Hanyu opened the door. And he skated brilliantly, especially in Boston. But he wasn't expected to win. Like, let's not. Maybe the cricket club thought that he could win. But the judges, everyone.
It was Hanyu's performance that allowed.
I went there to win. Set a world record, and like he had a brilliant short, and then didn't in the free. But I went there to see Hanyu reach a world, not thinking like, oh yeah, Javi will skate well, and then Javi skated great in the free. But it was like an unexpected bonus, but not what people were really lining up to. So, yeah. Watching the Kolyada exhibition is heartwarming for me because I'm so worried, like, how is Mishin going to handle having a skater that can do spread eagles and be artistic and do all these different turns? And it seems like he will allow him to do the choreography and not take all of it out. So that is hard. I think he should replace that awful short program he has probably with this exhibition, even though.
Although I think they could even do better.
He can do
for
better.
The Olympic season. I think something about, I was trying to think about it. It was an improvement on the overall music and approach than the current short program. But what I do enjoy about the current short program is that he delivers it like gangbusters. Is just not my favorite material, but he's still committed to it. But this, it was a bit more generic, but more lovely and the way I would love to see him go. But as iconic as I believe the Nureyev program will become, I would love something equally sophisticated and iconic for the short. So.
I forgot that Averbukh actually did do the White Crow free. And as much as we shade Averbukh for some of his choices with
ladies, I found that this
horrifying tragedies, he's capable of doing some very great work. Yeah. I think we keep that program for the Olympic season and keep
100%.
It's an Olympic moment. So.
Yeah, totally. And I think he has one that he could create for the short.
And my worry is that Steven Trzaska is going to be like, what, you think you're Kolyada? But Steven loves to identify music, but I wouldn't try to be Kolyada. I just love the music. And it
would be your version. Yeah.
Well, it would be like a condensed, like this long.
Yeah.
I don't know. It might be too hard. I try to find music that is inspiring to me, that meets what I'm trying to achieve at the current moment.
Yeah.
I have a list. It's on a list of 3 to 4.
Okay.
It's like a rolling list over time. So the original piece that I did, I'm wondering if it's maybe a little too fast, and maybe is that going to make me anxious when I'm going to my jumps instead of
triumphant or empowered. So when I'm picking concert or recital music, I'll often create all these playlists with all of the options, and then I passively listen. And so if I'm just out at the grocery store, if I'm just walking around, and then I stop in my tracks and get the goosebumps or something like that, then that piece is in.
Yes.
And if I find myself kind of zoning out, that piece is gone. You know what I mean? If you're zoning out, guess what? So is everyone listening to you sing it or watching you skate to it. we're all going to zone out at the place you did.
The white crow music I love because it changes over time and the stuff happening to it. Although I was playing Rachmaninoff Piano Concerto No. 2 as we were playing Ticket to Ride with my dad the other day, and he was like, ugh, all that skating music sounds the same. Didn't even say it to my face. He said it to my mother when they were like going to bed at night, and then she, of course, relays that to me.
Who did you see? Now I want to know who you had playing it.
Oh, I had a great person playing.
I'm sure you did, but I find that piece in particular, like I'm a Marta Argerich like guy through and through. Like that's my jam on all that.
I think it's, I don't want to mess up the name. I had Lang Lang playing it.
Lang Lang, Winter Curtis, just like me. Hey, hey.
I'm playing some trash. Okay.
No, of course not. But I mean, and he would give
Look
a
at my
flashy
sweater,
rendition.
Jonathan. Do you think I'd like haphazardly do anything?
And lift up your coffee mug and put it next to your sweater. Tell me you haven't coordinated through and through. I think it's all in the same family and it's great.
Mm-hmm. It was the mood
Nice
I was
touch.
in today.
Nice touch.
So.
Okay.
Also, the other thing is that, remember that, didn't Monbiel once choreograph for Takahashi, like way back in the day? Like maybe 4 years ago?
Okay.
Did this happen? Did I invent this? I think this happened. I feel like it was like a gray number. Did this happen? We gotta.
I don't know. I just love Takahashi so much. I don't even want to look.
I may have invented this in my brain, but like, I was watching that also gray moment of Shoma Uno, and Shoma Uno is always compared to Takahashi, but I think he's got like a better port de bras situation going on. I was like, Lambiel is going to give like the show. Like, I would love to see a Lambiel program for Kolyada. But obviously he's going to be working with Shoma Uno, and Shoma Uno is very in this conversation.
So let's talk about this Gabriel's Oboe that we watched of Shoma. We were talking.
It's the Oboe Concierto. But Miyamoto did it, but not.
I'm just saying words. I'm like Nutcracker, Swan Lake, Oboe this, Oboe that. Oh boy. Okay. I think listening to him do that kind of music, when we were talking about skaters that make me feel something emotionally versus skaters that are just beautiful to look at, this particular oboe music, to me, goes with someone who is beautiful to look at versus someone who is visceral and gives me an emotional response. So for Shoma, I actually, yes, it's beautiful. I love it. Who wouldn't? But I do miss that emotional connection, because that to me is what he does that no one else can do.
By the way, Lambiel did choreograph for Takahashi in 2011, La Valse des Amelie.
Oh, see, you knew. I never doubted you, Dave.
Listen, it was so many years ago. I'm going back 10 years to remember this program.
That's like 8,000 Russian ladies ago.
Fans, if they don't remember it, they're going to say that we're lying, and the ones that do are going to be like, "How could you forget it?" So
exactly. So there we go. There we go.
10 years. Just
There's
saying.
a lot on the mind. A lot on the mind.
Dun,
Yeah.
dun. I don't know. I think that Shoma gives me both. I think he can give the emotion, and I think this is a good. I think this opens up a sphere for the program. Maybe don't use this program, but maybe it opens up a window into like options, and he has more.
Because I don't know. I find that both of these current programs could be turned into Olympic programs.
I mean, he's done them for 2 years now.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Is he going to be Victor?
Like,
with like da 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 da.
go with what you know.
By the way, Victor in Navka's show posted a clip. He's skating so big, so good.
He always did. Come on.
Very good boy. He loves acting. It's so funny. He's so fast, though. I guess he's been practicing. Okay, so I'm excited because you did finally get to watch the Peng and Jin program.
Yes.
Hard to find from Cup of China. And this is a Lori masterpiece. They didn't skate it as well as they did at Cup of China here. And I felt like their overall skating could have been bigger. It didn't sing. Maybe it was the camera angles. I know.
Yeah, I have to say the camera work for what we were seeing from, now they're not calling it Chinese nationals, they're calling it a team event.
National team competition.
Okay,
Right?
okay. So I happen to love the short program most.
Mm.
And I thought the free skate was very beautiful. It was very much rotational. So much of the choreography was a lot of rotational whip arounds.
Transitions where they like wove in and out.
So this was one where I would say was very pretty to look at, but I wasn't emotionally connecting. And in the past, we have seen some surprising, when they were doing cutesy, but in a classy way, they have more personality. But like you say, this could just be them getting the feel for it, because no video ever surfaced that I found from Cup of China for their free. And again, the side-by-side toes look good. She just struggled on the side-by-side sow in the long. But the throws were lovely, and they're so big and exciting, but they don't do the throw flip or lutz.
No, they go clean.
Yeah. So
I was wondering, at what point did they become China's leading contender and Sui and Han become the Hail Mary? Because think about how much time since 2018 that Sui and Han have been off for injury. It seems like almost a year now, perhaps, although he had surgery. Was she injured before? I think there always seems to be missing competitions. Last year they competed more than usual. But definitely before 2019 Worlds, they missed most of the year. At what point does that catch up with them, that they have not even trained a lot over the last, against maybe a team like Peng and Jin, or teams like they're really lucky that Alina is not competing. That's, at the end of the day, the fact that Bruno didn't want to compete, they should send him a muffin basket. But they are going to have the blessing and the curse of skating at home, because it's a lot of pressure.
right.
But we've also seen a lot of athletes rise to that occasion.
Well, and Sui and Han, many times when I have, obviously one of my all-time favorite pairs, they do such cool stuff. They've often made us nervous through injury and lack of training, or lack of competition outings or something. And then they have really been able to turn it up, but I don't know how long you can keep doing that.
I do think that the added pressure of having a silver medal and going for the gold is like cruel and unusual punishment.
Right.
I think we've seen this throughout history, but it does seem like it will take a clean performance to win. But they also have done a quad throw and a quad twist, and maybe that could be the difference, even though it's not worth nearly enough that it should be. You start to wonder if they should just go for it, because what else is going to differentiate you? There's no way that they're going to do triple sow oil or triple sows. I mean, they're hoping to go clean.
Right. Or inherently, just based on limitations of size, their lifts can't have the same impact Tarasova Morozov lift can have. You know, they're maximizing their points in other ways. It's so much more complex. It's so much more nuanced, a lot of what the Chinese pairs are doing, but it lacks a sort of grandness to it, I think, that inherently, again, some of the Russians might be able to pull off.
I do think that Peng and Jin remind me of Peng and Tong, where they could kind of deliver a really strong performance and almost win the whole thing, right? Like they got a really strong silver medal in Vancouver. They just seem to be on that trajectory, even though she wiped out on the sow. But at least they were going for two triples here, because in times they haven't.
And the toes look good.
Toes look good, both programs.
The throws were lovely.
Between now and if there's a fake Worlds or whatever happens in March, or if there's a socially distanced Worlds or a virtual Worlds or whatever it is, you think about it, they would need more speed, and that jump would be the biggest things.
Right.
So I'm curious to see what happens.
Yeah.
I want to see Sui and Han back. I want to see them better than ever. I want to see them.
I think Peng and Jin could make a big push in the short. I think I could see them really placing high in the short and putting them in good stead.
Elements is so much, you know, Mishina and Galyamov have X factor, but they don't yet have the Moskvina perfection of the refinement. So
especially if you're going to put them back to back in the same event, I think it becomes very clear then.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting thing to watch. And I don't know. What do you think is going to happen with Worlds? We have this second strain. Japan just closed its borders. I'm like, how is Simone going to have her Olympics? Like, what is happening? Like, on one hand, there is a vaccine coming, but it seems like a race against time, even for the Olympics. So then you think, what are they going to do about Worlds? apparently
Who is hosting it again? Sweden?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And do we know anything about Sweden?
I don't think it matters the actual, I mean, obviously the actual country matters, but can you have the Russian team there or the US team? I mean, Hanyu, one thing we didn't touch on was that he was very decisive in speaking about the fact of how dangerous he felt it was that the Russians let, and he said one of the competitors, we obviously know Anna Sherbakova did have a fever during the short program, and they let her compete. And he talked about how dangerous and irresponsible that was. And good for him for having a voice and having a platform and using it, because there is a lot
We got in so much trouble. Do you remember when we said it was irresponsible of him to go on Cup of China after that concussion? But it seems like he's changing his tune. This is good.
Well, he's matured.
Because he's right. Because I believe he is right. How dangerous and for what?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how you do it if you do it without spectators. This is one where, you know, we all knew like every regional and sectional mom was ready to say their kid was jilted by unfair filming or something in the United States trying to get to nationals. Imagine if each country was responsible for filming their own world championships perform. That would be a nightmare.
You would have to live and like find ways to.
Right.
It still would not be fair, but it could be better than nothing.
It could be better than nothing, and that's all we can really compare it to. The problem, of course, is if we're going to take Olympic entries based on those results, then I think some countries that are close are going to be really upset.
What do you use? Last year's world standings? Do you use the 2019 worlds, or do you try to have people peak multiple times next year and come up with like a points thing? I'd rather see virtual competition. I was thinking about we've seen the Chinese skaters probably twice this season, Cup of China than now. Haven't seen.
We've seen the Russian skaters every 2 seconds,
and not enough. Really, not enough. I would see them more.
I would like to see more of the Japanese skaters, but we've been able to see them quite a bit as well.
Terry is in Miami. Apparently, she has a man that she's with there. I think this is great that she can fly and
do whatever. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I don't feel like we've seen enough of the Russians. I would like.
Canada has been the big question mark for me.
We're going to see them. I do feel for them. I was talking to someone who's Canadian that said, you know, the tough part about, you know, the Canadians, they take their time with everything. But the tough part about athletes is if you competed at that last competition, you're still living in that moment. And I was thinking even as an adult competitor, when I competed at adult nationals, in sectionals, you compete and then you wait for the results to be posted on a sheet that gets posted on like a board or a wall, as if like it's a cast list going up in high school.
In high school, we're the worst, yeah.
Right? And you know, like when you're in high school and you're the audition and you have what, like 12 hours until it's posted the next day, and you're like running through it in your head and like going through who could get what part and like the whole mind games that you play with yourself. Think about how if each element could be judged, you're like, well, they could say it was this, or they could say it was that, or maybe they gave us this, or maybe they didn't give us this. If you're in that for almost a month if you're a Canadian skater. Think about how is Deanna handling it with her level of intensity?
Oh my God, amazing.
Can you imagine? What would Megan Duhamel be doing? Like, what would she be doing on Earth? Like,
I don't know. It's got to be so tough because, again, in watching China this weekend, I was sort of back in the mindset of thinking about the team event for the Olympics. And you look at a place like Canada, which had a gold medal at one point, and definitely I think it's gonna be a real struggle, and they may not be able to hold on to a bronze here. I don't know how this goes. I would love to see Piper and Paul. I would love to see KMT. I would love to see, you know, more Keegan and all this sort of stuff to just kind of get an assessment on where they're at.
Could they pull off a bronze?
Who are they really up against? I think it's Italy.
You would have to get like second or third in pairs.
Which I could see her third or fourth.
Piper and Paul would have to do the same. You then need
which they could do actually. Well, France, Russia, US. I could see them in 3-4.
You need Roman Sadovsky to mature in a year and become really focused, which I think he's becoming more and more, but you need him to like, because he is capable. You look at Keegan and you're like, he is great, but can he rein it in? I don't know that I trust him. Nam, I don't know that he has the quality of the elements. I think Roman is the one where you need him to like keep it in a box.
He has the potential for the biggest score of all of those guys, no question. Yeah.
And then you need like Gabby Daleman to like get it in a box.
Right.
And make it into, hope that they're in the top 5 and that the worst she could do is 5th place. And then I think Canada will get a medal for sure.
Okay. But those are some big asks. Those are some big asks from the men and women.
I think Roman can do it. I believe.
Can Gabby also? I mean, that's the thing. Like you look at a place like Italy where the dance will kind of be in there. The pairs will kind of be in there. The men will kind of be in there.
I'll be curious, is the social media channel relaxing and helpful to him, or is it distracting? Because think about all the video content he can do at the Olympics.
Oh my gosh.
Later, the IOC and like all of those rules probably and all that stuff. But think about like the kinds of footage that he could do. And
yeah.
He just seems like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's possible. I'm curious who other people are really banking on.
Because it's also interesting in watching China, they had between Boyang Jin and obviously the pairs, they have the super tall guy ice dancer who I like so much, who had in the past worked with Marie France. They're looking better and better. Not that they can really be top 4 or 5, but they're not going to be like in other periods when we've seen countries like that with total, like almost negative entries in certain disciplines. But it will be the female, but they had a lady in China this weekend who was landing some quality triples enough to keep them in the game.
Japan could be in it for the team event because they would have to win the men's short,
which they could.
Yes, and maybe be second in the ladies short.
Well, which they could, because there's only going to be one Russian lady competing.
How high can their dance team place? How high can the pair place?
For them, it's the pair. For instance, when we talk about it, yeah.
They may win. They may win the bronze if they make it into the finals.
They needed to keep Mervyn Tran on the payroll.
I know, you think about like it can actually be a more exciting team event because it's less predictable.
Right. With the same 3 just shuffling a few. Yeah.
I mean, I think Russia's gonna win.
Yeah.
The US will be second, probably. What? Probably. Look,
I think it stands to reason it probably would be that way.
It'll be a very exciting event. And look, that'll be huge for Russian skating, which seems like it couldn't get bigger, but another team gold will elevate that. We talk about that pro circuit. Think about it. It'll just
absolutely
elevate the amount of people that have medals and things and career accomplishments and what to do next.
And then they can do those, what were those specials where it was like an evening of gold or something, and it was like every gold medalist skating together. Yeah. They could be doing all those team gold medalists. Yeah.
I think that Terry should do like the Nutcracker on ice and then have her pro skaters be like, the adult people in the company, and then her children be, the youthful parts. I don't know. Totally. I was just watching that on point on Disney Plus and thinking about all the possibilities. What we could do.
Amazing.
Varsity Fedotov would be a wonderful Nutcracker. I mean, come on.
Wonderful anything. Like, what a beautiful skater. That's who should be doing something like that Swan Lake segment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The competition in the Tuberitsa rink to get the roles. It would think about the drama amongst the mothers. That would be the documentary.
And the silence apparently from the locker room till the time you end your program, as we're learning.
Come on. Don't you want to watch Medvedeva? warming up to Billie Eilish, like in her groove, and then not talking to anyone as she ggets ready to do her program, and then nailing.
Yes, against Zagitova, Tuktumisheva,
Daily.
Asada, all these people. Yeah.
Think about that. Those like fluff pieces we see with like the slow-mo and the music and the no words that
And the rematch with all the dry ice coming up. Yeah.
We need this to happen. We need this to happen, and I'm ready for it. So
now's the time.
We're
desperate for content.
Yes. Also, I wanted to plug, you know, I have had shoulder posture problems for like my whole life. Even when I was looking at those old home movies, someone was like, oh, I can see it there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working on strengthening my trapezius muscles. Igor has a class that we do. We did it this morning, and I beg him to send me the recordings of it after so I could do it every day. We do like a shoulder posture and hip knee posture with weights. So I've been doing it every day to build.
So where do you put your hips when you do that?
It depends like what we're doing. If you're doing a crossover, you try to put them forward and put the belly on the spine and bend the knee. And
see, my problem with my posture and with singing and stuff is I always used to tuck. But I think you probably are supposed to tuck a little bit more in skating.
No wonder you love Drag Race. Anyway.
I didn't say I love it, by the way.
I'm kidding. Anyway, I don't know. What was your moment of the week, Jonathan, of watching all of these programs that we did?
Oh, I have to say the Kolyada segment. The Kolyada segment, watching him continue to work on such beautiful quads. Like that Lutz in the South. I think that was a real moment. And I'm going to say the production value of the Ice Age performances.
Doing a quad toe in the finale. Also, I'm getting very excited about thinking about the Russian junior nationals. Think about Akatieva versus Zhilina. That's like as competitive as the seniors. Plushenko needs a win. The Angels of Plushenko need a big win this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Already like chatter about will Lakernik send, you know, Kosternaya or Trusova back to a Terry? Would a Terry take them? What is going on? Like, what are they going to do before the Olympics to get all these girls at their best selves? I'm getting excited for like the Europeans because I want to see Trusova add in some of the quads and see if she can go clean. Can play because she's always trying to add in all of them, but then she like lands 3, falls on 1, steps out of 1. I would like
because I kind of in some ways, not that I would do this as a competitor, not that I would know, but it's sort of just like, try 50. Well, we might get enough that we get up in there in the number somehow.
But it doesn't wind up suiting her. And this is why she Terry, because it's her who's trying to get her to 4 and at least be clean.
Right.
And get it. So yeah, I think this is like, can she do big quads with good GOE that get her the point? I'm excited. I'm excited for this like Europeans event that we're gonna happen. Like, when are we gonna
Which is when again, Dave? How did they announce that?
You know, it's when the Russians feel like doing it, Jonathan. They're going.
Okay, got it. Let me pencil that in.
I mean, it's coming. So
yeah.
Don't worry. Terry's gonna come back from Miami, and we're gonna go to where we're.
Too hot to skate, or wait, it's like a nice tie into that Oksana special.
It'll be somewhere in a foreign region of Russia, maybe Kazan, maybe, I don't know, wherever.
Exciting, yeah.
We haven't been to Yekaterinburg in a while. Maybe we could go there.
Beautiful.
Hometown of Yulia Lipnitskaya. I don't know. Where should we go? I don't know.
And you know where we could go? Anywhere that's not those multicolored seating things.
You're over the arena in Moscow. You're done.
Yeah, it's a bit that for me.
All right, you know.
Yeah. So anywhere but there. Have fun.
I think, yeah, I really enjoyed watching the White Crow movie. I have to say that was a real moment for me. But Kolyada's exhibition, the Oksana and the Katerina things were really...
Yes, those were fun to watch and fun to go back to. Harkens back to an era that like warmed.
I couldn't believe how blunt Brian Boitano was when he's the one that's being interviewed like as her friend. And he was like, she was a nightmare.
Oh, I was talking about the Katerina one where he was like hiding in the dark in the corner, probably trying to hide his hair at the time. And he was saying, oh yeah, Kati has a mirror on her ceiling. And I was like, okay, all right. I guess that's the narrative.
I'll never see that now. Okay.
I was intrigued when they talked about her Stasi papers being released. I didn't understand that was a thing. And that would have felt so violating to me. Where can we read that? No, I'm just kidding. But is that how we first learned about Ingo? I wondered if that, because they didn't really develop that line of the story. And of course, all that Stasi stuff is so fascinating.
I think there were lots of people spying on her. So
Yeah.
and I don't know exactly how that worked. It seems to be hush hush. They don't like to go into it that much, but
yeah, fair enough. So
golden edge looks sexy, everyone.